Okay, so can I start?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you for this opportunity, actually. I was thinking, why am I talking about Asian Englishes in SEL community? Uh, but I realized that it's also important for our identity, and that's how I picked up this topic. And also because, of course, the reason is that I teach English, and I feel that all these, I mean, all of us as Asians, we have different kinds of challenges when we use English. So so that's how I thought that I'll just talk about Asian Englishes with focus on teaching EFL in Japan, like English as a foreign language. Just to make it quite clear that foreign language is different from a second language. As it is in India, we actually use English outside classrooms, but in Japan that's not the case. The students don't get an opportunity to use English in society, generally. I mean, unless they are part of some academic society, or unless they are working for a multinational company, or if their career demands some kind of improvement in English. Of course, I mean, there are different reasons people are learning English here, but it's still a foreign language. It's considered to be a foreign language. It's the part of the identity of Japanese people, where Japanese is more important and English is secondary. So I'll just start with this introduction, and I'll try to uh, try to share these things in this presentation. Uh, there are two important models that I came across, of course, in two different time span. They were these two important models. I'll just talk about them and how Japan and English, what kind of relation they have. I'll talk about it, and then the types of variations, the kind of Englishes that we use. There are different kinds of variations that comes up when it comes to Asia. So I'll try to talk about these variations with respect to Japanese learners. And I'll talk about my respondents and data, try to give the uh, preliminary analysis stage that my data is in. And I'll also discuss, this is the main part where I want it to be a discussion, where I want to discuss about the data. And I'm really looking forward to talking more about it and how I can build on it. Okay, so of course, all of us know about this expanding, I mean, these three circles of English given by Braj B. Kachru in 1985. I got it from Crystal, 2003. And it's very, very interesting. I mean, how this was put up by an Indian. It's important, yes, that the inner circle is the native speakers, just to talk about it in short. And the outer circle are second language speakers. Of course, it comes from the colonization, the history that we have related to that. And then there are expanding circles where we have China, Russia, etc. So different countries and different cases in which we had English. That was 1985. But later, we had a dynamic model, because it's not just a circle, but there are different stages that was put forth by Edgar Snyder. And what he suggested was that there is a foundation. First, a language is introduced. It can be English or any other language. Then there's an exonormative stabilization, where people try to think that I belong to a different language community, but I'll kind of use this community. This is how I feel when I live in Japan here. I have this kind of notion that, yeah, I have this Indian identity, but I try to use Japanese uh, for my work. Then it comes to nativization, where people think that there is a variety. They generate a variety and they start using that particular language. And then there is an endonormative stabilization, where, I mean, they, like in 2 or 3 generations, they become a part of the society. And I mean, it's kind of mixed identity, and that's why it becomes endonormative, and then it becomes a differentiation stage where people try to see how it's different from, I mean, say native English or Asian English or Japanese English or Indian English, whatever. So I'm not very sure on using Japanese English right now, but it's a variation and we can always talk about it, and that's how the differentiation comes up. Now, talking about Japan and English, of course, post World War II, there were a lot of historical changes, and uh, there were a lot of developments that happened in Japan. And that's how they thought that their identity is important, and they just built their nation based on this theory of one language, one nation. So Japanese is important, even if they have different dialects, even different languages that are used in different parts of Japan. They stick to using Japanese only as their national language. So it's a totally different scenario, monolingual scenario compared to India. And English is used officially only to help foreigners in the country. For example, if you go to a doctor here, they would try to ask you, is Japanese okay? Um, if you say no, they would supply some English document for you to fill up, but you'll have to talk in Japanese. So these kind of, I mean, the way English, the role of English is very limited. That is a different kind of a challenge for learners. But then the government is trying very hard to improve on it, and we have a lot of non-Japanese assistant language teachers or English language teachers, etc. So, okay, I'm sorry. I I'm so used to looking at chat when. Okay, so unless it's for globalization and career, we don't see people being really motivated to learn English. And this is why there's a new English is kind of a concept that Lang and Lickert in 2020, they have given it in terms of the way language is used on internet. So through music, movies, and different ways in which people try to exchange views from foreigners, people do start using English even in Japan. So it's not just like start, of course, everybody's using English, but it's slightly less, it's not that important. But English is used as a lingua franca, and that's why, I mean, in different kinds of atmospheres, people do have to use English sometimes, especially academically, because people do feel that if you really want to go into higher studies, you really need to learn English. Or if you have to visit somewhere else, even if you need to travel somewhere else, you need English. So there's a common notion that English is necessary if you really want to communicate to somebody. Well, so when we are talking about the variation and change, we can see it at different levels here, as these authors have pointed out, like verb phrase, noun phrase, sentence structure, lexicon, and pragmatics. Um, but apart from this, discourse-wise, we also need these ideas like the spoken or written data from language is very discourse sensitive. The kind of discourse that we are using, it kind of affects our language. So that's the case for learners also, or even in classroom teaching. We need to understand that discourse is very important. And also discourse competence, we all know about this, that Canal and Swine, they did talk about this, uh, where they said that communication is more important, and we don't need to worry so much about errors, etc. So if we can communicate it through, it's fine. That's what was the main idea. Now, the kind of data that I have is a pair conversation. It was like a speaking test that the students had in the class, and the class size was mostly 14 to 16. So each class has 7 to 8 pairs. I had 3 classes. So I have recorded data of this spoken discourse, but I don't have a video recording because the students are allowed to, I mean, they can choose whether they want their video to be on or off. We cannot ask them to keep it on. And the roles are like it's the customer and the waitress. The setting is like this, that they have created a restaurant menu as a group work. This is what they have done already as one of the tasks, and then they move on to of course, like in the course of the whole class, like 15 weeks semester, they do get grammar points like articles, verb tenses, or plurals, or adjectives, prepositions, different aspects that we try to talk about. Uh, but what they want to do here is they do a role play conversation in their groups, and they actually practice for it before they come for the speaking test. So they do this spontaneously because they are not talking to their same group members. The teachers actually, the teacher had just chosen the partner, a new partner for each person. So all of them belong to a different group, and all of them had a different menu. So we kind of shared the menu before the test, and then like 20 minutes before the test, and then they were asked to just go ahead and do this role play. So I would just like to talk about the kind of things that I found. I've just kept it as a discourse analysis at this stage, but let's take a look at the kind of steps that in which way I have divided the data. So I could find that there was katakana English. I'm sorry, I totally lost the track of time. How much time do I have, Kavita ma'am? It's better if I know.
Uh, we thought for around 1 hour, for an hour.
Yes.
So, so it's 4:30 now. It's 4:30 now, but we
Mhm.
started late. We started late, so I think you have another 20 minutes.
20 minutes. Okay. Thank you. Uh, yeah. So 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 this is katakana English. Now, what does that mean? It just means that uh, Japanese has 3 different kinds of scripts where katakana is something where the borrowed words, they are made Japanese, and they use the script to write those kind of loan words. So that's how katakana English is so much into use in Japan. So everybody knows how to call salad a sarada, but it's very difficult for them to come back to this form of salad. So it's like unlearning things in the class. Similarly, kohi. So coffee is becomes kohi, and which is used quite often. It would happen to any Japanese, I mean, any language learner, uh, that we use these kind of fillers or very simple words like and. So they end up using it again and again, but many of them used ando instead of and also the difference between the sound r and l. They can't distinguish the difference between these 2 sounds, and that's why they end up using words like prees or sprit instead of split, and please instead of please. So katakana English is very predominant, and even when we try to practice pronunciation, it's difficult. I mean, it would take a few more years to get rid of this. Then, as I was talking about fillers, so and is something where it just comes again and again, and it's like it's like thinking sounds. They have a very cultural way of not being silent at all. So even when they are thinking, they use an expression like so this. They have something where they are talking and they are thinking. So they have an expression for it. So they try to kind of give a very parallel kind of expression by using and, or they try to use or kind of a thing where they are trying to say that they are thinking, and they'll be responding in a few seconds maybe. So this is very Japanese. This is very interesting to notice. And there are some a different kind of echo question that we find here. So you want to eat hamburger steak if people delare. So it's very conversational. That's fine. Even a native speaker might sometimes use it, but it's a different kind of echo question where they don't ask, isn't it? They just try to focus on that particular thing. So they want to say that they just want the patty, the hamburger, and just the layer and not the whole hamburger. So this is something that they are trying to use to communicate, and it has gone quite well in the data. In the speaking test, they are very motivated and they are trying their best to communicate well. So this kind of echo question is an example of that motivation, or maybe they want better grades, so they really practice hard. Then errors in use of or missing content words. So sometimes even the content words are missing. Like I can give you an example. So there, I have just divided different sections of the dialogue and presented it with a blue line in between. So you can see that there are two people who are talking always, because it's a pair conversation. One person is the customer and the other person is the waitress, the wait staff. So they first do the role play as a customer and a wait staff, and then they do a role reversal. So A and B, it keeps changing. So I've just pasted it from the file that I have transcribed. So uh, please be with me so that I can just tell you what they are talking about. So let me just explain it. It's just a part of the discourse. So I want to have some dessert, instead of telling that that have is kind of missing here. And then in the second excerpt, it says that, okay, do you want to cash or card? So pay is missing here. So again, it's a very important word, and we don't understand unless we see that, okay, it was actually communicated and the person who was listening said cash please. Okay, so the communication was not affected, but there were missing content words also. Similarly, I want to uh, I want to have sugar and milk, or I want sugar and milk. They can talk like that, but again, there's something which is missing here. So then the function words, coming to that again, articles is a big problem. It's a problem for all the languages that doesn't have definiteness shown in the article. So Japanese is one of those cases, but it was very surprising that even the distinction, not just the use of the, but also the use of and was kind of misused. Many times it was there was an error where they used English menu. There were 4 or 5 occurrences of this. Again, the next kind of data that I found is lasagna, tomato soup, sarada, except to tomato, okay? So it's like she is the wait staff. She's trying to ask. um the discourse was this, that the customer doesn't want her dish to have tomatoes because she doesn't like tomatoes. So there is an expression of do without, I mean, don't have tomatoes in my food. That's what she wants to say. So she's kind of confirming by telling that is lasagna, tomato soup, sarada, uh, without tomato okay for you. She maybe she wants to ask that, but she's using except. It's like a literal translation of the Japanese word for it. Then the use of preposition again is a problem. So the next part, the next sentence we see it here is, how would you like to pay? So to is something which is missing here. We really need prepositions, and they were, it's like all the examples that I gave you here, they are just representative examples. uh, there were many such examples in the main data. Then please sit down this seat. So please uh, please take your seat, or please sit down on this seat, or maybe. So they were kind of trying to communicate, and they were missing out on some function words also, or using it in a wrong way. Then the word choice error. So in a conversation where the customer is being asked that sorry, the wait staff is being asked that, do you have favorites menus? Now, it's it's a what the person is trying to ask is, do you have any recommendations from the menu, something that you think, or what is your favorite? Maybe it could be asked that way, but it was brought together as favorites menus. And uh, and it was actually responded like this, that we have menu and coffee ando, so cocoa and tea and orange juice. So I want something to drink. And there, even the person who was like playing the role as a wait staff, she didn't know how to respond to this favorites menus, and she ended up telling all the options that she had on the menu. And she also used we have menu. So it's a different, both of them ended up making word choice errors here, but they kind of communicated quite well. Then the second example here, we can see it here that, oh, we recommend hamburger steak. It is very delicious and really very good value too. So maybe uh, is playing as a wait staff, and she's trying to say that the price is good too. So instead of telling the price, she's telling good value too. And then again, right after that, she says that, but I think it is little expensive. So she's kind of contradicting herself, and it could have uh, confused her partner. So these kind of errors did come up, where she, maybe she was told that it's good to use adjectives, and she wanted to use an adjective. She didn't know how to use cheap. She didn't know the word for it, and she ended up using expensive. And maybe that's a reason why she ended up doing that. Then, how does it taste? The next excerpt that I have here. Um, how does it taste? And the answer is, taste is about middle spicy. So after the food was over, and after the wait staff comes to the customer's table and she asks, how does it taste? She would say, taste is about middle spicy. This is something where she couldn't understand what was the question maybe, and uh, she didn't know how to answer. She could have just said that the food was delicious, but she ended up telling that it was middle spicy. And even middle is not the right word here, so she could have said that it was medium spicy, or she could say that it was a bit spicy for me. Or maybe she wanted to say that. Then there were some miscellaneous errors, like the use of expression like "one more, please." This is a recurring kind of an error that happens in the class, uh, even after having told them that this is not an expression in English. You cannot say "one more, please." Here, the use of "one more, please" doesn't mean that I want one more drink. It's not that kind of a use. Sorry, here the usage is for if they don't understand and they want you to repeat. So could you please repeat that? Instead of telling that, uh, the customer just said one more, please. So she didn't understand what her partner was talking about, and she ended up using one more, please. This is an expression which is a direct translation from Japanese again, and that's why they end up just using this expression quite a lot in the class, even in the practice sessions. Then the next excerpt here is, would you like another menu? No, no, thank you. Okay, so here is, this is your, so here, this is interesting that again, there's a communication even after not speaking it out properly. Um, would you like another menu? Would you like to order something? That was the main thing that the wait staff was asking. And the customer was like, no, no, thank you. She understood what she wanted to say. Um, uh, and then she responded properly by telling that no, thank you. And then again, the answer, again, the further question is like, here, this is your, so so it's like they kind of understood that, okay, this is your receipt. Maybe she missed out on that word receipt, but still, based on the context and in that particular timing, her partner understood, and they both smile at each other that, yeah, we do understand even when we are not talking. So that was quite interesting to see. They were communicating it fine, but there were some miscommunications as well. So when the wait staff, when she said, "Can I recommend you the appetizers?" Um, the customer said that no, we don't decide yet. So here there is a total loss of communication, uh, where the waitress is just trying to say if she can recommend something, and the customer, she just thought that she's asking whether she is already ready to order. And that's why she says that we don't decide it. So we haven't decided yet. That's what she wants to uh, suggest by this expression. Then the next expression that I find here is, can I use the card? So when she goes to the counter and she wants to make the payment, the customer asks, can I use the card, the credit card? And the person on the counter, she says, okay, that's right. So it's not the right expression to use, okay, that's right. She could have said that, yeah, that's fine. You can use a card, or yeah, uh, please do use a card. There could be different expressions, but okay, that's right is again, I mean, for for English, it doesn't sound fine. So it's like a wrong expression in that particular context. Then again, after the third expression that we have here is, oh, thank you. Hope to see you again soon. So this is the wait staff who says, and the customer says, thank you, that was great. Now, again, that was great doesn't, in the whole, like even the sentences before or after, doesn't talk about what was great. So that is referring to something like the ambience of the restaurant or the food, or we don't understand that. So it's kind of they are trying to use it as a formulaic expression by just telling something at the end and trying to be nice to each other, just like we do in Japanese, where they have some formulaic expressions. So this could lead to miscommunication, and it is a wrong expression in terms of use of English. Now, I'll just come to the limitation. So the work is in progress. Classroom languages. I feel that there are a lot of limitations to the data that I have. Uh, the problems are that classroom language is not a natural conversation. So people are not actually talking; they are actually trying to take a test, or I mean, if they press the record button, they kind of get conscious, and they are kind of stressed sometimes. So it is very uh, obvious that it's not a very uh, free or natural conversation. The second thing is that they also have a knowledge of rubrics. So I kind of prepare a rubric on which I grade them, the kind of English that they use. So always before the test, there is a norm to show the rubric and tell them that I'm going to judge you on these aspects. So just as I talked about the use of adjective, they would just end up using some adjectives because they feel that they are going to get points for that. Of course, if they don't use it in a correct way, they won't get points for it, but uh, they get conscious because they know the rubric already, and they have been practicing in the class for the test, looking at that rubric. So what happens that they try to prepare for the beginning and the end, something which is constant. They know the context, and they know that the beginning part would be the same: welcome, what do you how many people. All of them have a very, they try to, generally they have a very fixed kind of expressions that they want to use at the beginning and the end. And of course, based on the menu, and based on the responses that they get from their partner, their conversation is going to change. So they try to kind of fix certain things in their conversation. So again, it's their performance gets affected, and it's not natural. Then outside the classroom, as I was talking about, they don't use English actually. So very little bit of English that they use, and that's why they end up not getting used to it. So anytime when they go to a restaurant, they hardly ever use English, uh, unless it's an exceptional case. And the level of students, they are just like they are undergraduate first year undergraduate students, so they're just right out of school. And the schools in Japan, they don't use English as the medium of instruction. So uh, their English is more of based on rote learning, and they know some expressions, but they don't know how to use it. So they have that kind of a level of English. So these are the limitations. But I have some future plans for this. Like I'll quickly sum it up here, but it's important because even before this, I did try to look into details like the use of articles by Japanese learners, Japanese EFL learners, and also look at the reported speech errors. So when they use indirect speech, they end up making some errors. So there are theoretical underpinnings, and people who have talked about these kind of issues in Japanese linguistics, and when they have compared it with English, it's very easy to bring it to English language teaching, those theories, and just try to say that, yeah, that's why we have these things, and there can be ways in which we can try and improve on language teaching. So these are the first two things that I have planned for. But the major motivation for this kind of a study is that I really want to build a corpora. They do have some corpus for language learning, like particularly English language learning, because people are talking about it. But pragmatics and corpus teaching has not been very successful. Recently, I was going through a dissertation by Miura. It was submitted in 2018, and that talks about corpora and pragmatics and how we can bring in to ESL or EFL classrooms. So these are some of the references that I have just cited, and I would say thank you. I feel that my time is up. I really want to discuss about all of this, so please
Thank you,
let's talk
Nivedita.
about it.
Thank you very much. Now I would like to invite Professor Mishra for his comments, and then other participants can also, if they have any questions, they can ask their questions after Professor Mishra's comments and suggestions. So I would like to invite Professor Mishra first.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very nice presentation and good analysis, Nivedita.
Thank you, sir.
I think you have like you needed more time to discuss many other things like the theories behind why such mistakes or errors occur
Yeah.
in the speakers of Japanese.
Mhm.
So yeah, I find it perfect. You have brought everything from say sound like r, l to lexicon and even discourse, and also given us some insights like why such mistakes are there, because they rote memorize. They don't no, learn the way it should be. That means what I mean is a second language, especially English, is learned when the person who is learning, the learner should have first access to the spoken English, the spoken language. And
Mhm.
that is what is missing even in Indian context and also in Japanese classroom, as you have shown, that we have very little place for the spoken English. That means like first listen to the native speakers, the talking, their
Mhm.
discourse, and then we learn uh, from the written documents. But what happens in Japan, as it looks like, and so is true for India as well, that we start from say writing written materials, reading, writing, and then the written, say lists of words and grammar. So that could be one reason that they have to depend a lot on, say, rote learning. Because what happens in English or in any second language, like exposure is more important. It's not only the output, the input is also important, and what kind of input. So spoken input is more important than written. But this is how, in both the countries, I feel we are trained, the teachers as well, that
Mhm.
we depend so much on the written books, no, and grammar, lexicon, etc. So that could be the reason. But given the time, you have explained everything very nicely, and this could certainly guide us here, those who are engaged in teaching, learning English, like what to look for and what can be expected and how we can take care of for those errors that, like chali gayi. So
Oh,
those
mhm.
errors. So that, yeah, perfect one. Yeah, very good. Nice presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Huh. Thank you.
Thank you for your
Thank you, Mishra
insights.
ji.
Yeah.
So
Ji.
any other participant want to ask anything or any suggestions from other SEL members?
Kavita ji, if you allow, like I had this question in my mind
Yeah.
while listening to Nivedita. One is that, see, what we find here in Indian situation is that that theory kind of it's a true what we call sensitive window for the spoken no, variety of second language, learning the sounds and syllables, etc. Sensitive window or critical period. So that we have not found a way out. Like that cannot be corrected. Any mistake, no, at the level of phonology. So what was your experience there in Japan? Like, have you been able to remedy those errors and mistakes, phonological?
Yeah, actually, it just depends on the course that I take. So if I'm expected to spend some time on that, I do that. But personally, I feel that uh, sounds are not that important unless the communication is affected. So uh, it's okay because I mean, we use different kinds of English variants
Mhm.
all throughout Asia. And that's the case with Japanese people also. As they use it, they understand that they are using it wrong. But I mean, it would be really strict on them to just say that you cannot use this katakana English uh, because that's not correct. That's okay to use katakana English, I feel, because at least using that English is good for them. So personally, I feel that I tell them that this is not the correct way in which you should be talking once, but I don't tell them again and again, don't use it, because it's kind of demotivating. So I
Ah,
feel communication is more important
yeah,
and
that
not
is
the
true.
correct
That is true. What I
pronunciation.
meant is like your personal experience. That does teaching really help in taking care of the pronunciation mistakes because they are all adults. So, what is your experience? This is what I wanted to know.
Yes, I mean, they do try to, like some of them, whoever wants to work on it, they really try to work towards it, and it does improve. That could be another idea to compare the data. Like after I talk about it in the class and after we have practiced it a bit, I can try and compare their usage of katakana English and see how it helps.
Mhm.
So yeah, that could be. I mean, I don't have a very clear-cut data to support that. So,
Uh,
but
all right,
certainly there's an improvement.
good. Okay,
Thank you.
that's all from my side. Thank you.
There are two questions, Nivedita. One
Yes,
from Monali. I would request Monali to unmute herself and please share your video also.
yes,
Monali? Yeah,
I can see both the questions.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Monali can ask or you can have. I
yeah.
just
So,
wanted to meet you all also. So because
Sure.
Monali is also a member of SEL, so that is the
Yeah,
reason, Nivedita. Yeah.
sure.
yeah, it was a wonderful talk, Nivedita, and thank you, Kavita ma'am, for this wonderful session we are having right now. I have the question that I have is: are these speech errors coming from only the English educated Japanese students, or is it that they are all from Japanese, Japanese medium of instruction kind of a background, or is it that they are from both and then they make the same speech errors?
Yeah, most of the students in my university, um, I think they are all from the Japanese